All right, as we go to the pass catchers, our first one is Jaylen Waddle against New England. Here's the reality with Jaylen Waddle right now. He hasn't scored double-digit fantasy points since week 1, and it's getting way worse as the weeks go on as the Dolphins' offense sinks without Tua.
Over his last 2 weeks, without Tua Tagovailoa, to your point, he's got 62 total yards. He's averaging 7.1 fantasy points per game. He is wide receiver 71. There are 70 wide receivers. There are 70 wide receivers with a higher points per game average over the last 2 games than Jaylen Waddle without Tua Tagovailoa. If you guys want to start wide receiver 71, you knock yourselves out. I ranked it at wide receiver 46. I thought that was generous.
Yeah.
I mean, again, like he's always got that big play ability, but the Dolphins have the second lowest implied team total in Week 5. You mentioned it. We talked about this early in the show. Over/under of 35. We don't expect a lot of scoring in this game. They've gotten 0 deep targets, as you see the next-gen stats and just his route tree for Jaylen Waddle. Like, there's nothing deep here.
Nothing.
He's got a 4.4 average depth of target, 0 deep targets, as you see there, right? 4 receptions on 6 targets, just 36 yards, 25 of those after the catch. So, I mean, like, what little yardage he's getting, he is getting after the catch, but they're dumping it off. Maybe they try to open it up a little bit more for Tyler Huntley in the second week of him in the offense. He just got there. I get that. But in an ideal world, you're not starting Jaylen Waddle until we see some production until Tua's back or we see some production from whoever the Miami quarterback is.
The thing about this is at least Tyreek Hill got some attempts at some deep shots last game. Like, Snoop threw it out there a couple of times. Missed them, right? Jaylen Waddle's not getting any of that.
No.
Like, they're saying, Jaylen, you got to take that thing and go to the house. And, Matthew, you talk about his wide receiver 70 ranking the last 2 games. Well, for the year, he's wide receiver 57. He's behind Cooper Kupp. And how many games he done missed? Right? He started out with a bang. Both of them did, but that was with Tua. He had 109 receiving yards in week 1. Since then, he had 103 receiving yards the past 3 games. So, like, I do think the Dolphins will try to open it up more with Huntley. That's a tough offense to run when you've been there 2 weeks, but there's no way you go. I just talked about the game being 35.5 over/under. There's no way you go out there this week, start Jaylen Waddle knowing all of these things. So I'm going to keep it close, and I'm a little more generous than you ranking him wide receiver 42.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, wow, you love Jaylen Waddle.
I guess I do.
He's player of the week. All right, so Zay Flowers still has his franchise quarterback, but the problem is for Zay Flowers, a little similar to Waddle, Lawrence, that the production hasn't been there the last couple weeks. Do you still ride with him hoping that he could turn it around? The Ravens' script obviously has been very run-heavy.
Yeah, well, like you said, it's week 3 versus Dallas. They laid the smackdown on them. They ain't had to throw. Last week, they laid the smackdown on the Bills. Derrick Henry laid the smackdown on the Bills, so they didn't have to throw. So the actual throwing has been good. It just hasn't been a lot of it. But when you look at the first 2 games for Zay Flowers, he saw 21 targets. He's only had 6 the past 2 games. When you look at him versus this Bengals defense coming up, we saw Terry McLaurin. He got back on track against the Bengals. You saw them versus the Jaguars. Their receivers was able to do their thing against the Bengals. So if the Bengals could just keep this a game, and offensively the Bengals will be good enough to do that, you hope, then that should make Zay Flowers more fantasy valuable. So I will leave this open for him. I got him at wide receiver 22 in week 5.
I'm at 21, as you just saw, so we're right there, Lawrence. I will also keep it open, and you're absolutely right. The key here is, can the Bengals keep this close enough? The last 2 games, Zay Flowers, 30 combined receiving yards, averaging under 4 fantasy points per game. But in both those games, the Ravens were up 21-3 in the second quarter. Both those games, they were blowouts, right? And so if the Bengals can keep this close, we expect Zay Flowers to be a much bigger part of this offense. Team high 26% target share. In the 2 competitive games that the Ravens played, he had double-digit targets. He had at least 10 targets in both those games as well. To your point about Terry McLaurin getting right against the Bengals, they've actually allowed the 12th most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. Deontay Johnson, Xavier Legette had nice games against them last week in a game that the Bengals won. So, yeah, I'm keeping it up on Zay Flowers. He's my wide receiver 21 this week.
Our last wide receiver, Keenan Allen, he's got the Panthers in 2 games this season, Matthew. Keenan Allen is averaging under 6 points per game in a Bears passing offense that there's been volume at times, but it's been very inconsistent with the rookie quarterback and Shane Waldron.
Inconsistent is the nicest thing I've heard anyone say about the Bears offense so far this year. Dating back, first game back last week, 13.6% target share. So far this year, he's averaging just 3.4 yards per target, I should see. Carolina is actually pretty good against the slot. 5th fewest yards allowed to the slot, which is where Keenan Allen lines up. Until we see the Keenan Allen from last year, until we see consistency out of Caleb Williams, I'm closing it out. He's my wide receiver 48 this week as well. I mean, it's been tough. This Shane Waldron offense in Chicago has not taken flight the way I think the Bears hoped.
No, DJ Moore looks frustrated, and the numbers speak for themselves. Like we said, there's just no consistency. There's no flow of this. And Lawrence, some of the times we've seen the big numbers have been with them playing from significantly behind.
Yeah, that was the Bears versus the Colts. That's when Rome Odunze had his big game. They were trying to come back. But that's not how you want to play football, especially with a rookie. Think about this. DJ Moore is wide receiver 26. We might have him in this segment next week if things don't go right. And that's their top receiver. So there's no way I could start their number 2 or 3 receiver in Keenan Allen, who was wide receiver 72 in week 4. Great season last year, but this right now, the Bears offense hasn't figured out how they want everyone's role to be at in this offense. So I'm going to close it out on Keenan Allen.
One of the other challenges here, it's sort of the same as we talked about with the Chiefs, obviously in a different way, Mahomes versus Williams, but the fact is the Bears defense is really good. They're not getting into shootouts. They don't want to. They don't need Caleb Williams to suddenly go crazy in the passing because they don't need to. They want to play more controlled. We like Carolina's offense under Andy Dalton, but this game's in Chicago. We don't think the Panthers are going to come in and light up the Bears. Certainly this should be a low-scoring, close game. They got the running game going last week, right? DeAndre Swift. And so I think if I'm Shane Waldron, you're just like, that's what we want to do is we want to try to run the ball, control the clock, not put as much on Caleb Williams' shoulders. And if you're not putting as much on Caleb Williams' shoulders, it's hard to see how that pass distribution goes between DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, who's come on a little bit, and Keenan Allen. So, yeah, we're closing it out on Keenan Allen. As long as we're talking Bears here, Connor, I'm curious. Hindsight's 20/20, easy to say, and obviously I'm sitting here on found money. I'm playing with a house money here. But as we sit here and going into Week 5, should the Bears have taken Jaden Daniels instead of Caleb Williams, or is it too soon to say that?
I still think it's too soon.
Because that's the hot take artist.
The combo has started. The combo has absolutely started. I think, number one, the Bears' offensive line has been dreadful. And I thought the Commanders' offensive line would struggle. Credit to them. They haven't. They've been fine. Jaden Daniels deserves his flowers. He's been amazing. I think it's a little early. Right. But there's a lot of takes out there right now.
I do know.
A lot of hot takes.
I do know some people that pre-draft was saying the Bears should take him. But I still think it was it was the right move to take Caleb Williams. But I'll say this. You just mentioned their line. We just talk about the Bears' offense. Those are 2 things that have been there when Justin Fields was on the Bears. And now you see Justin Fields throwing for 300 and running for 55 in the same games.
He's the
winning
quarterback
the division.
He's the quarterback of a 3-1 team.
Right.
That too, which is
That's
a big
got a legit
thing
shot
for
at
him.
going 4-1 on Sunday Night Football in Pittsburgh when the Cowboys take, which, by the way, we'll talk about this later, but we're going to be in Pittsburgh this Sunday morning at Applebee's. There's an Applebee's in Pittsburgh. We'll talk about that in a minute here. But just as I'm talking about it here, like if you're in Pittsburgh or the Pittsburgh area or Pennsylvania, honestly, even if you're across the country flying, it's that kind of importance.
Pull up.
Yeah, exactly. We'll be there live broadcasting from an Applebee's Sunday morning fantasy football pregame. Come dress as me or come dress as Lawrence. Honestly,
somebody did come dressed as you last year.
Yeah, I know.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's the greatest thing in the world.
Yeah, he ate for free.
He did eat for free.
Yeah, it's a good move
if you
by
come
him.
dressed as any one of us, you come dressed as Jay Croucher. Yeah, 1,000%.
You eat for free.
You eat for free.
And you'll probably appear on the show if you
honestly,
want to.
what do you think of Jay Croucher costume? Is it just like a
Well,
New
now we
York-
nailed it.
Well, I know. It's like
It's the downtown Fi-Dye uniform.
Yeah, exactly.
The
That's true.
pressed new button down, the slacks.
Yeah, or is it just like, is
Liberty
it like New
hoodie?
York Liberty
New York
jersey, New York Liberty jersey, and like a
Right now is a good time to wear that.
and just
Right.
multiple betting apps that you're just
That's
juggling.
true.
Yeah.
That's true. You're logged in on 30 different betting apps.
Yeah, exactly.
That's fair.
I'm sorry, only on DraftKings. He only bets on DraftKings.
That's fair. That's
Yeah.
right. All right. Our last player I would call Mr. Keep It Open or Close It Out. I swear he's on this segment multiple times every year. Kyle Pitts. Here, Matthew. Kyle Pitts right now has one game this season with more than 26 yards. That's not an exaggeration. One game.
He's been under 30 receiving yards in 3 out of 4 games this season. Like, he caught a touchdown in week 1, but that was a busted coverage where he was just wide open, where any of the 3 of us would have caught that touchdown again, just with that busted coverage, right? His snap rate has decreased in every game this season. He's got only one game with more than 4 targets. He's averaging 3.8 per game. He's averaging just over 6 fantasy points per game. You see it there on your screen. Not only am I closing it out, Connor,
Drop City.
he's Drop City.
Oh.
Welcome to Dumpsville, population U. Right? It's the old Simpsons line. Welcome to Dumpsville, population U. I don't know that it's Kyle Pitts' fault. I don't know what the issue is. But the one thing I will say is that yes.
Can you believe it?
Hey, yeah, Arthur Smith. Yeah, let's
You
go,
know
Arthur
what?
Smith.
You
Get a
brought
free
up Justin
drink.
Fields having success.
Justin Fields having success, maybe, like we, and by we, I really mean me, torched Arthur Smith all last year.
right.
Torched him.
Yeah.
And, by the way, still probably should have, but, but honestly, you sit here and you see another game this past week where Tyler Algier out-touches Bijan Robinson. Kyle Pitts can't get on the field, can't get a target from a new quarterback, from a new offensive coordinator. Maybe it wasn't Arthur Smith. Maybe it's Kyle Pitts, Connor. Maybe it's
No. At some point, it's an indictment on the player.
targets are earned. Like
Yeah.
targets have to be earned.
Look at Ray McLeod.
Look at
And,
Ray McLeod.
Speaking of targets,
Look at Darnell Mooney.
I don't love the target share here throughout the season. It's 12.5% for Kyle Pitts, and this was a guy that was supposed to be, as the fantasy folks say, unlocked by Kirk Cousins in this Zach Robinson offense. You just think about, like, they're not throwing the ball enough either for him to be like, you're 4th on the pecking order. You're 5th on the pecking order because you're behind the running back too and Ray McLeod, right? Kirk Cousins is averaging under 30 passing attempts per game, so the first guy we're going to is Drake London, and he himself is wide receiver 21. So there's no way you could play a guy who has 8 receptions, 15 targets, and 105 yards and a touchdown. That's good
And
for one game.
Right.
Like, if he give me that in one game, we back, baby.
Not 1 month.
But not one
Not
month.
1 month.
Not
I
1
can't
month.
do it.
You're the biggest Falcons fan I know. If Kyle Pitts was on the waiver wire in a normal-sized league, are you picking him up?
Am I picking him up? Nah. I'll give you a real situation because we play each other, and
we
he's
do.
my tight end.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the waiver wire right now, just being like, which one of these dudes can give me 4 points? All I need is 4 or 5 points.
It's me and you
Because
this
I'm
Sunday.
like, it's like
2 catches for 20
like
yards.
the week before that when Kyle Pitts caught that 50-yard play and everybody like, oh snap, then he ain't do nothing else. So like if he could just give me that one catch, like I'll take that but we shouldn't be thinking like that. We shouldn't be hoping for 130-yard reception for Kyle Pitts, and that's the point of this segment, and that's why we closing it out.
Yeah.
It's my tight end 16.
And you're going to have to make a decision on that by Thursday night because the Falcons play
I
Tampa
know.
Bay.
And look, if he does do well, I'm not going to be beating my chest. It's going to be like, whew, man, man, I'm lucky to get them 7
Got through
points.
1 more week. All right, let's recap Matthew's Keep It Open, Close It Out rankings. Patrick Mahomes, yes, Patrick Mahomes at QB 15 is a close this week. Ramondre Stevenson, Keep It Open, RB 18 against the Dolphins. Patriots are favored for the first time this season. Rashad White against the Falcons, RB 26, reluctantly open. Jaylen Waddle, wide receiver 46, close that out. Zay Flowers against the Bengals, wide receiver 21. Keep it open on Zay Flowers. Keenan Allen against the Panthers, he's wide receiver 48. Close that.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotorWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched. or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto-World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.